is the University of Michigan.
Touchdown, Michigan!
And midcourt, extra pass.
And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole!
Down the sideline! Peoples-Jones! Touchdown, Wolverine!
All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I am Justin, joined by Kaylin and Jack as always, and we have a special guest on with us this week. It is Shane Werner from Wolverine Sports TV and the University of Michigan. Shane, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about the hot Michigan basketball team.
11-0, baby. 11-0. The Fighting Juwan Howard's crushing it down here in Ann Arbor.
For sure, yeah. It's been quite the ride, man, and this has been like a true saving grace for us as Michigan fans. Is like, oh my God. I try to like think about like what if this team was, I don't know, 7-4 or whatever, even like if they had struggled against some of these Big Ten teams or any like even like thinking back to the Oakland game, like what if they lose that Oakland game? Like holy shit, you know, this would have been just a brutal winter after a brutal fall with the football team. And like honestly, I'm on Twitter all the time for Michigan with like on Michigan Twitter, quote unquote. And like the Michigan fan base on Twitter would have fucking exploded, let's be honest. So yeah. It wouldn't have been fun.
Yeah, I mean, I know in that Oakland game, there was a lot of knee-jerk reactions from people who just wanted to be like, oh no, this team is bad too. And it's surprising that that's really been the only game where it's looked like they were going to lose. I mean, I guess the Penn State game was kind of back and forth there at the end, but that Oakland game seems so long ago that this team that we're seeing right now is almost unrecognizable from that team that struggled to get stops against a pretty mediocre Oakland team.
Yeah, mediocre and maybe an understatement, man. Have they won a game yet? I think they're still winless. But
yeah.
It's crazy that was the toughest game of the year. The worst team they played was the closest that the game was. And they played as top 25 guys and blowing them out.
You know, Toledo though has not lost since Michigan beat them. I think I just retweeted somebody, I think it was Dylan Burkhart on Twitter that said it. Toledo, so what's funny is what he said was Michigan lost the game with NC State, which was a great, Big Ten ACC challenge game, but they replaced it with Toledo. Well, in KenPom, Toledo's actually 58th in KenPom. NC State's 66th, and NC State's lost 3 in a row. Toledo hasn't lost since they played Michigan. So that was actually like you swap out the ACC for the MAC, and it's an upgrade. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that NC State game kind of felt like losing it was a big loss because it felt like that was going to be the game where Michigan maybe got some national attention since they were undefeated and it was like, who have they played? But I mean, I still don't think Toledo's going to get the respect they maybe deserve as a MAC school, but a lot of these teams that Michigan has beaten, even if they're not necessarily ranked, are good teams. And I think that's what was really impressive. Even at the start of the year, I mean, Bowling Green had some guys that were absolutely hooping. They looked like they belonged in the Big Ten and not in the MAC. So every team Michigan's beaten other than the Oakland team, like you said, which they struggled with the most, has been a good team. I mean, I think UCF has been flirting with the AP poll, right? I don't know if they're in right now, but I mean, that was easy for Michigan. That's a very good team.
Yeah, for sure. I think their Michigan's strength of schedule is, come March, going to be a really big thing for them, especially if they keep winning, obviously, and win those quality games. But even if they lose a couple, like if you're looking at, the rest of the schedule here, and it's crazy that we're like saying the rest of the schedule because I feel like this season just started, but we're already halfway through because of the, pretty much halfway through because of the, at least with the regular season. But I'm not ready for it to be over. That's for sure. I'm like, I want the season to go on as long as possible. We need to hold on to this. But anyways, I still think the strength of schedule for Michigan will be a big thing for them in March to be able to just, continue to build their resume. Right now, Jeff Goodman has them as a 1 seed. So, which is crazy. Like, would you have ever thought that Michigan 11 games into the season, like we were thinking fifth fifth seed in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
Not a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Holy shit.
Yeah, I did not expect this season to go this way at all. And it's crazy how this team's playing like they've been together for years. And Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown being like guys that are just coming in. Hunter Dickinson being brand new guys coming into this team, and they're all performing really well. It's crazy to see.
Yeah, considering our recent history of Michigan sports surprises, this one is definitely the most pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, I got asked to put out a hot take to say that Michigan was going to finish in the top 4 of this Big Ten, and I felt like I was maybe going to look silly with that on the record, but now I look like the smart one. Yeah, this team is very real to win the Big Ten regular season title. I mean, I think fortunately they only have to play Iowa once, which is going to really help them. But I mean, I think the biggest worry you'd have right now with this team is, are they playing too well too early? And I guess that's a pretty good problem to have if you're Juwan Howard.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even like to think about, teams playing too well too early, but we've seen it for Michigan teams. Like, now that you brought it up, Shane, I mean, we saw it from the, 2018 team. I think even last year they started off super hot and then kind of fell off. I feel like this team's different, but you never know what's going to happen. I mean, that's the crazy thing is, hopefully they're not peaking too soon, but what does scare me is the last 2 games of the season. We got Iowa and Sparty back to back, and we know how dangerous Sparty can be at the end of the year. So I don't know, man. I'm trying to enjoy this ride as long as we can because this team is damn good.
No, I agree. I think what you have to avoid is when the first loss does come, if it does happen, you have to avoid a skid. Because right now they're playing with so much confidence that you can't let and you also can't pretend that you're going to go undefeated. I mean, we can hope for that, but like this conference is so loaded, there's just going to be one night where maybe your shots aren't falling, and that's what it looked like from Wisconsin, as good as Michigan was defensively. But you can't let any loss in this conference really derail you, and that's got to be a focus for Juwan Howard if they do drop, one of these tough Big Ten games, fighting a skid and keeping this momentum that they have right now going.
Yeah, and I think the difference from what it looks like to me for this team compared to some teams in the past for Michigan that have gone on skids is they don't just rely on the 3. They barely rely on the 3, really. Like, obviously, they use Hunter Dickinson in the post more than they ever have. Even junior year Teskey wasn't going for 22 a game. He was not even getting, let alone the points, not even the touches. So the fact that they can go in and out a lot and not just rely on the 3, I think really helps this team as far as a true skid or a bad shooting night. Because if they have a bad shooting night, they just get it into Hunter Dickinson and he goes, he can go for 30 if he needs to. And so I think even like they're more dangerous than an Iowa to me, because Iowa, to me, if Luka Garza for some reason has a bad night, Jordan Bohannon can't carry them to 100 points, which is what they need to win because their defense is so bad. Where Michigan's doing it on both sides of the ball and at all, 8, 9 deep, right? So I think the versatility really helps them in terms of the worry of any type of skid towards the end or through this Big Ten, towards the end of the year, like into March and anything like that. Because especially when you get into March, into, the Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament, if they 1 week, or 1 game in the, first round or something, they're like, all right, Hunter Dickinson goes for 32 and 11. And then the next night he has like 8 and they go for, but they still shoot the 3, and Livers and Franz go for, 17 each. Like, how do you beat that team? Seriously, how do you beat that team?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my question to Juwan Howard in the press conference after that game is like, if I told you Hunter Dickinson was going to have 2 points at halftime, do you think Michigan is up 17 points? I mean, if you would have told me Hunter Dickinson was going to have 2 at half, I would have thought it was going to be a very bad night for the Michigan Wolverines against Wisconsin. But I mean, it showed that as much as they have leaned on Dickinson in some of these games, even when he wasn't on and, Wisconsin was really devoting attention to him on that side of the ball, I mean, he's still getting looks for other guys. It opens up stuff for those shooters on the edge. So, I mean, now he's just garnering so much attention from opposing teams that it's making everybody else better. And that's what you really want from your center.
Yeah, and with Dickinson, too, I mean, not only is he a force inside. But if he is, double teamed, whatever, he doesn't have a good shot. He's such a good passer that he finds the right guy, and that guy is normally pretty wide open where they're getting good shots. And the fact that you don't have to rely, like you said, Ro, a little bit earlier, you don't have to rely on one guy. There's 5-6 guys that you can, one guy's off or 2 guys are off. These other guys are going to score and get points, and that's what we saw against Wisconsin. It was nobody. I don't know if anybody had over. Could be wrong here, but I don't know if anybody had over 15 or 16 points. I mean, it was spread pretty even across the board for that team, and they still won by fucking 20 some points, and they were up by 40 at one point in the second half. I mean, just absolute insanity.
They could have won by 50. They literally could have won by 50 if they kept the foot on the gas. But I don't know I can't remember at what minute mark they went in, but it was still 5+ minutes left that they put in the scrubs. And what I noticed too is Wisconsin didn't take out their starters. They kept their starters in until literally the buzzer went off, which was kind of nuts. So it really could have been 40 or 50.
I also love seeing Hunter Dickinson as he's gotten more comfortable. He's kind of even like stepped out of that direct post spot and taken a couple shots from medium range too. And I love seeing him hit some of those little jumpers.
Yeah, I mean, he can shoot, pass, and get inside. Love it.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen like the high school footage. I mean, he looks comfortable shooting threes. He hasn't really done it here, but I would think if he starts getting some of these double teams in the post, if he does step outside, I mean, if he can get some confidence in that jumper, he's going to be unstoppable if he becomes a 3-point shooter as well.
Yeah, I think that I'm looking at the stats for the season here. I mean, Hunter's at 17.5 points per game. Livers 13.8, Franz 12.5, Mike Smith 9.2, Shaundi 9.0, Eli 8.7. I mean, we're within a point for these last 3 of averaging 6 guys in double figures. And Michigan's not like, you wouldn't say they're going out to score 90 to 100 every game like Iowa is, So it's just crazy how they distribute the ball to everybody, and everybody's, contributing, even though Hunter's obviously taking that front seat and scoring the most points, because Michigan hasn't had a 17-point scorer since, I don't even know if Trey Burke scored that many, I really don't. So he might have been close, but it really, I mean, it's pretty incredible when you look at the stats over 11 games, how spread out it is. Eli is probably one of the most important pieces to the puzzle, and he still is 6th on the scoring, and he's had some really good games where he scored 15, 16 points and lit it up from 3.
I mean, is it time to start talking about Juwan Howard, lifetime deal? Are we at that point yet? A year and a half in?
Don't jinx us with that talk, because we were talking about that for 3 years ago with Jim Harbaugh, and look where we are with that. So.
We were, and they were in pretty similar spots a year and a half in. I can't remember if it was Brandon Brown or somebody put that up on Twitter, but you look at a year and a half in for Harbaugh and for Juwan Howard. I mean, they're kind of neck and neck. I mean, a long season left for Juwan, but Harbaugh had him pretty damn close to a Big Ten title and a college football playoff berth at the end of that 2016 season.
I will say that I was definitely a little skeptical when Michigan hired Juwan Howard. I mean, I think those shoes were just so big to fill when Beeline left, and I can't believe that a year and a half later I'm saying that Michigan basketball looks like they're in a better place than they were when John Beeline was the coach, which I don't think anyone could say that they thought that was going to happen. But I mean, as excited as I am about this season, they're bringing in the number 1 recruiting class. I mean, like, there's just so much to be excited about, even if this season, maybe doesn't end up in a Final Four like it seems like they could do right now. I mean, there's still so much to be excited about moving forward. And I think that's what's given me hope watching this team, is it's like, we're this good right now and we're bringing in this much talent. It's just, I mean, you have to applaud Juwan for what he's done in 18 months already.
Yeah. Program's heading in the right direction. That's for sure. I'll be pumped to see Musa and Caleb Houston. And I mean, listen, if Hunter Dickinson is still there, we're gonna have some giants out on that floor. And Musa and Caleb can both shoot it from range too. So I mean, it's just a scary lineup, man. That's a scary lineup to see.
It's like we'll have so many guys, like I don't even know who to put on the floor at one time.
Right.
He
I mean,
really
you'll be able
will
to run.
Probably have. He will probably have that problem. I imagine at times, like, I know, Coach K and Coach Cal and even Izzo, I think Izzo is really struggling with that this year. He's got a bunch of really, really talented guys, and he hasn't found this rhythm with this 8-man rotation. He goes like 9, 10 deep sometimes, and then some of his starting 5 like sit the bench for 7, 8 minutes at a time. I hope that Juwan Howard kind of figures that out, but I feel like Tom Izzo's going through that right now, and they're really struggling because he can't find a true five guys to step up and be those guys, so he keeps cycling through, but then guys can't get in a rhythm because you don't give them the chance. And it's like, it's this whole circle that you go through. And I don't know how Juwan Howard will handle that next year, because he's handled it pretty well this year with the talent that he has now. Like even Shawnee Brown for the majority of other teams in the Power 5 would be a starter. Right. And Brandon Johns would start at a lot of places as well, so it's like, I think that he's handling it well now, but add 2 more 5-stars into the mix. Damn, that's really tough for him to handle. Right.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah. I mean, think about how many teams even in the Big Ten would have Zeb Jackson and Brandon Johns Jr. like playing significant minutes for them. And Zeb Jackson's coming in with guys that are preferred walk-ons at the end of the game. I mean, like
DJ
that says a lot about the talent on this roster. And I thought Brandon Johns like had a shot to be a starter this year, because I mean that was before we knew if Shawnee was playing. But like even when he has come in like not in a rhythm, he still played pretty well and given the minutes. So I mean they go like 10, 11 deep on this team, and I think that is going to pay off when you get into March. And we haven't seen Hunter Dickinson get in foul trouble yet, which has been very impressive from a freshman. But, I mean, there's going to be a game where one of these guys gets into foul trouble, a couple of them maybe. You play an Iowa team that wants to really get in the post. But I don't think depth is a problem for Michigan. And, honestly, the opposite is a problem. They might have too many guys. But it doesn't seem to have discouraged any of them. And I think that's what's really positive and says a lot about Juwan is, a lot of teams, guys aren't getting minutes. They want to put their head down, be disappointed about it, but anytime any of these guys get in, they look like they're all in, and even when they're on the bench, they're cheering for everybody else. So this just seems to be a full group that really wants to see each other succeed.
So I want to ask you guys this. So they're 11-0 right now. There's 13 games left in the Big Ten, right? In their regular season. So what's a successful record? Like we have to imagine they're going to lose some games, right? I think there was some KenPom stats that like at 20-4, I think is their most likely ending. But so if 20-4, I mean, that's probably going to win the Big Ten, right? I have to imagine, unless Iowa just goes undefeated or plays really well from now on. But wanted to see like what's exceeding those expectations or the expectations at 11-0, and what would you be like? What would you say at the end of their 24 game regular season? Are you like, damn, they had that hot start, but they cooled off, and now they're not hot going into March, right?
I think for me, man, if they go 20-4, like anything from 4 losses to going undefeated, I'll be ecstatic. I mean, you can't expect to beat Sparty twice in a season. Iowa's a tough team. They've still got Wisconsin again at Wisconsin, and they still got to play Illinois. I mean, those could be 4 obvious losses right there. So I mean, honestly, they could go 500 the remainder of their games, and they're still winning 20 games, or no, 18, and they'd be going 18-7. But that still gets you in the Big Ten tournament. I mean, you're still gonna make the NCAA tournament at that point. That's the thing I love about basketball. You don't have to go undefeated or have 1 or 2 losses to make the playoffs. And so for me, they don't really have to do crazy well for the remainder of the season. But if they go 20-4, that'll be fucking awesome.
Yeah, definitely. If they win 20 games, I would throw a freaking party. But I would even say like 19 wins. I mean, that's still on the same kind of level too. I mean, 19-20 wins is what I would expect, and if that's what they meant, then I would fucking love it. So
yeah, I think 20 games, but I think Michigan got pretty lucky with the draw that they got in this Big Ten Conference. I mean, I think Illinois once and Iowa once. Those seem like the teams that would probably cause the most problems for Michigan with the big men that they have. So yeah, I would agree with you guys. I think 20 wins would very, very confidently put them in the 1 and 2 line come tournament time, and I think that's where they need to be if they're going to have a real shot at making the Final Four. Just what we've seen with how good so many of these teams are across college basketball, you could run into a really, really tough team if you end up, with a 4 or 5 seed come March. So I think Michigan really needs to try and hit that 20 win mark if they want to put themselves in position to make a run for the title, both in the Big Ten and nationally.
This is going to sound dumb and anti-Michigan, but I kind of want them to lose soonish so we can get that monkey off the back, right? And you don't have to have the undefeated talk and blah, blah, blah. And the target's always going to be on your back if you're, in first place in the Big Ten. But everyone's not coming out every single night to try and give you your first loss, right? And so I think, obviously I'm rooting for them to win every game, but if it's going to happen, I want it to happen now or soonish. I actually, in my opinion, think that it might happen on Saturday against Minnesota. They play unbelievable at home. The barn is the weirdest place to play in the Big Ten. It's like the weird court. They are, above the floor there. I don't know. It could be a little bit of a trap game, I think, just because Michigan's playing so well. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Would you want to I don't know. Would you rather lose a couple games to, let's say, Minnesota and Illinois in the next couple weeks or something like that, so that they can get that off their back and then move into, figure out some issues that they have and move into, February here and keep rolling, and so they still can have an upward trajectory going into March?
Well, I'm with you. I would like to see them lose and see how they respond. It's really easy for a team to be excited and play really well together when you haven't lost a game yet. But it's, first of all, you learn a lot more from your losses than you do your wins. And I want to see how this team responds to losing. I mean, playing tough teams, the Big Ten's loaded. Like you said, at Minnesota plays really well at home. They play like shit on the road, and that's why Michigan beat them so handily. But I'm curious to see how they do against the Minnesota team on the road. That could be a tough game, could be a loss. But like I said, you learn a lot more from losses than you do wins, and I'd rather have them lose during the season than in the Big Ten tournament, where they can learn a little bit more and improve on whatever they need to improve on.
Man, I 100% disagree. I want them to keep winning. I think there's something to be said for momentum, right? And you can keep winning, and you can almost will yourself to win games that you shouldn't win. And so if they continue to win, who knows where they could go next. And I do agree on the one hand where it's you do learn from your losses and you can identify weaknesses, but when you just keep winning, it can almost be like magic, right? And special things can happen. So I want to see him keep winning.
I'm going to agree with that because, if this team was just barely pulling out wins, that would be one thing. But the fact that they're beating the doors off teams and then coming out and playing even better the next night, that's what's really impressive to me because, yeah, it's easy when you blow somebody out. You just say, we're going to do that again the next night. But it seems like they even work from there and are even better in the next game. When you looked at the scoreboard and saw them up 40 on Wisconsin, that was unbelievable. I don't think anyone think that game was going to go like that. But, yeah, I would agree. I think you just keep winning as you are now and assume that you can keep getting better from here because it seems like they keep getting better even after blowing out, ranked opponents by 20-plus points.
Well, to your point there, too, the thing I loved most about the game against Wisconsin was when it was the last possession before halftime and Wisconsin's trying to get a shot off. Michigan's up 17. The bench is holding each other back, literally, in a 17-point lead. Michigan's on defense going absolutely nuts. I think Franz or Shandy blocked them, and they didn't get the shot off, and then they rushed the court like that was the game. That was they just won on a buzzer beater or something. In reality, they're just going into the tunnel up 17 at halftime. And it's they are truly not satisfied with anything. They could literally be up 40, which they were, and still they're not all right, it's time, let's let's take a breather. Like, no, they want to just pound it. And so I think they're, there's the whole trap game thing. I think we see that a lot more in football than we do in basketball, but it's still there in basketball, especially when you have a 9 p.m. Tuesday night game on ESPN and Dan Dakich is fucking calling the game, and you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to be here. But
I loved it. I love Dakich on the air the other day.
Dakich.
I normally do not like him at all, but man, his shout outs were amazing. He lit up your boy Franz with some good feedback, and then he shouted out Skeeps, which I was like, all right, you're just get off the air now. And on a high note, it was amazing.
I have a roommate that doesn't watch a ton of basketball, and he just hates Dan Dakich. I mean, this is the first game he's ever watched, and he's just like, who the hell is this guy, and why is he allowed to call national games? And I was like, I guarantee if you go on Twitter right now, he's trending because everyone is saying the same thing as you, and everyone hates him, but ESPN puts him on every Big Ten game, and it's whatever. I don't know how he's allowed to do every primetime game, but I can't stand listening to him.
He's just I tweeted out during the game, like, and I should probably be talking to myself because I yell on here very frequently, but he's literally screaming on the broadcast. And I'm like, dude, calm down. And then the best part about it is, like, I thought about it for a second. I realized he's at home in his basement right now because he's calling the game from home. I'm like, he's not even like feeding off of the like energy of the teams or anything like that. He's just like in his basement screaming at the wall. Like his wife's probably up there like, shut up, I'm trying to read my book. Something like that. I'm like, dude, you're ridiculous.
Dude, I'm sure we can all relate. We've all been in our basements screaming at the TV.
Oh yeah.
But Dan Dakich, what he does is if a team is playing well in a game, he's like, oh, I've been calling this for them all year long. Franz Wagner's been the greatest, player. Hunter Dickinson, I knew it all along. And then, like, the next game, if Wisconsin plays well, Brad Davison has been really great for them, and Nate Reavers has just been, I've been hot on them this entire year. Like, he just rides the hot team no matter who it is, and so he's just like, I'm like, dude. And his son, transferred from Michigan to Ohio State, so he's a piece of, whatever.
There's no loyalty in that family.
No.
What a great segue.
My favorite part about it is that Ant Wright on Twitter just clowns Dakich for when he said he could, like, he outplayed Michael Jordan or something like that back in the day, and then they like Ant Wright dug up the film on it, and he like got absolutely murdered by Michael Jordan or something like that. It was hilarious. So.
What kept making me laugh about him is, like, Michigan is up like 40 points, and he's talking about how Wisconsin is, like, definitely one of the top teams in the Big Ten, and it's like, if there was ever a time to back away from, like, that take, it's probably when they're getting hammered on the road. But he's like, Michigan's great, Wisconsin's also great, and it's like, come on, man, like, look at the score. Michigan's clearly a better team, at least tonight. But yeah, he doubles down. I'll give him credit. I mean, he's not shy. He must read some of those tweets. I mean, people are atting him. They're vicious, but it doesn't stop him.
He does not even read just his ats, though. He always searches his own name. Always. If you notice, like, the tweets he tweets back at people, they don't add him. So he literally goes on Twitter and searches his own name to try and get in Twitter fights with bots or people like that have no profile picture. I'm like, bro, you have a problem here. You really do have a problem.
Gotta keep those fans engaged.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we can segue into football. That was a lot of positive talk. When you move into the football team,
I don't know how much right now.
There's some positives. There's some. Finally, it feels like for the first time in ever that we actually have some positive news here. So
there's like actual news. We were just speculating for months.
We're just talking about, like, so what if? What do you think if Harbaugh signs? What do you think? Like, it was just all these what ifs, and finally we have some news. So I don't think we've done a podcast since Harbaugh officially signed, have we?
Wait, I thought we were talking about Urban Meyer being the coach of the Jaguars.
Yes, my guy Urban, my favorite guy ever. So happy for him that his health is back in great terms here, and he's able to get on the sideline.
He's cured. He went with Trevor Lawrence, and Dabo Sweeney dunked him in the river down there, and he came out and it healed all his ailments.
Oh, man. Yeah, perfect timing for him to go join the Jaguars. Wait till they have the number 1 overall pick. He got one of the best quarterbacks of, the decade coming out in the draft. Hey, he played it well. I'll give him props to that. He played it well.
I liked the idea that if Fields somehow won that national championship game, that if he did get that job, he was just going to try and force them to draft an Ohio State player. But I think the Jaguars owner kind of got out ahead of that. I don't know if you saw. He said, we're looking to hire a coach who wants to coach Trevor Lawrence. He was really? We're not hiring somebody who's not taking Trevor Lawrence. So I have to imagine he signed on to taking Lawrence before taking the job.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know about you guys, and I don't know if we even want to get into this, but Lawrence, I still think is a lot better than Fields. The intangibles are there. I don't know. But I also watch Kyler Murray, and he's played well. And I see Justin Fields as a better Kyler Murray. He's not quite as fast, but I think has a better arm. I don't know.
Quick, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right now I'm more of a Fields fan than I am Trevor Lawrence, but I don't think you can go wrong either way. I really don't.
And somebody brought this up to me, and I thought this was a great point. If you were to take Fields over Lawrence, and Lawrence ends up being as good as we think he is, you don't recover from that as a GM or as a coach. I mean, he seems like a can't miss guy.
That's a Lions or Jets move to just that's like a Detroit Pistons move to draft what's his name, Darko Milicic over Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. Dude, you're overthinking it. Trevor Lawrence is really good. Take him. But yeah, so want to get you guys' thoughts on the Harbaugh contract. I think all of us, Jack and Kalen, we were off the Harbaugh train towards the end of the season. I think many others were as well. It just kind of seemed like we were going in this direction of, he was ready to leave. He didn't have it anymore, on and on and on. There were so many things you could say about what happened, but Shane, where were you on that? Were you off the Harbaugh train, or were you still thinking he could be the guy?
So I was very much on the Harbaugh train even after the Alabama loss in 2019. I thought the calls to get rid of him were crazy. I didn't think Michigan could do any better than what we had. But this year I was completely off. I think the Wisconsin game this year is the lowest point I've been as a Michigan fan, which was just watching a team that looked like they had completely quit on national TV, just get their teeth kicked in, in their home arena. And I don't know what that means with no fans, in an empty arena. I mean, I think it probably made it worse because there was nothing but the product on the field for them to just be sad about. But I mean, they're a missed field goal away from winning one game this year. So I was completely off. It looked like the team had quit on him midway through the year, and I think that's really telling, especially in college football. I mean, how often do you see a college team quit on a coach? I feel like you see a lot more in the pros. But yeah, I mean, I have thoughts on the actual contract itself, but I'm definitely off the Harbaugh train. But I'm sure, if they come out and play like they did week 1 this year, I'll be right back on. So I'm easy to convince.
I think we're all in that same boat. But yeah, let's talk about that contract. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my two thoughts were this. One, it kind of made it feel like this year didn't matter. That was the university's stance, is we're re-signing him regardless of what happened on the field this year. So if that's the case, if this year didn't really impact your decision, why is he now worth half of what he used to be? That's what really bothered me, is if he's worth keeping, why is he only worth half of what he used to get paid? That's what really irked me, is you're admitting it hasn't really lived up to what we thought it was going to be. We don't think he's now worth, $8 million, one of the highest paid coaches in college football, but he's still worth keeping around. I mean, that just didn't make sense to me. I don't know why you cut somebody's salary but say we still want you to stay.
especially when you have coaches like, Matt Campbell, who's seen what he's built at Ohio or Iowa State, and what he's done with a program that doesn't really get, or doesn't have the opportunity to get very many highly rated recruits. And you think, bring that guy to Michigan, he can, build a culture. He's a younger guy, so he can relate to the players. Guys, his players love him. He's great at developing the talent that he does get. I mean, that's what bothers me more than anything. Exactly what you said, Shane. I mean, they cut his salary in half. So clearly you don't think he's worth the $8 million that he was before. So why even re-sign him at that point? If you don't think he's worth it, then why are you even bringing him back? There were other options out there that you could go after, but you're like, you know what? We'll keep him, but we're going to cut you in half, and we're going to give you an opportunity to make your money back with incentives. But I think it's just got to be, he and Ward are buddy, and that's the only reason he's still around.
Yeah, I had a couple other takeaways. One, I mean, I didn't really think about it at first, but I realized, like, wait a second, they're not extending his contract. This is a whole new contract, right? And
pretty much, yeah.
They also kind of revamped the idea of a contract. There's not really a contract like this for any other college football coach, but I feel like there definitely should be, because it makes so much sense, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you should definitely get like a base salary and make a lot more money based on what goals you execute. So I almost look at this contract and I go, like, going forward, this is definitely a formula that Michigan should use for any coaching candidate, because it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I think we hated on Ward a lot on here, and I know I did elsewhere as well. Just on the whole process, it seemed like he didn't have his his shit together, and it seemed like they were, for whatever reason, this whole thing was delayed, and we didn't hear anything, and it was everything in the dark, rumors. But I do have to give him a lot of props for this contract, because, like you just said, Kalen, I think this is exactly how the contract should be written for most coaches in college football, most coaches in sports. I know coaching is different than any other, job out there, but, if I don't perform in my job right now, they don't, fire me and then give me the $8 million that they don't give me the entire contract that I was, written up for at the beginning of it. They'll give me a severance package, but it's not going to be worth the buyout's not going to be worth the entire thing. So I think this is how it should be, incentive based. It should be a situation where, you know what, if you want to win, if you want to make money with us, you got to win and you got to prove it. And so finally, does money even motivate Jim Harbaugh at this point? I don't know. He's got a lot of it already. So does it really matter to him that much, or is he more about his own pride and being successful? I would say he's probably more about that, just because of his ego. But I still think that Ward deserves some credit for getting this done in the way it was, even though it took longer and it was more, troubling to get through than we would have liked.
Yeah, one thing to realize too is just how low the buyout is. Like, I think I saw that the buyout for the coach at North Texas is higher.
Really?
Like that. So like, and then it gets lower every year. So they can like mutually part ways, or they can basically pay him off at the drop of a hat. So this feels like definitely, okay, Jim, it's time to like, put up or shut up for sure. Like, this is the time, because if you can't get the job done in 2021, like, we can pay it off and we're going to go find someone else, like, for real.
So
I think I was, if I can just add on that point, I think that almost disappointed me that they wanted to negotiate a lower buyout, because to me that comes from the idea that like that's the athletic department saying like, we want to make it easier to let you go because we're kind of anticipating that's going to happen. That's what bothered me about it, is it's like they set themselves up to let him go either next year or the year after and making it easier from there, which doesn't make me really think you have that much faith that he is still the guy. And I think that's what bothered me. I think it's what bothers a lot of Michigan fans, is like, it felt like they made this move because it was the easiest thing to do. And also they're recognizing like, if this does really go bad and we see another year next year, like we saw this year, like it is time to be done. But I don't know. It just felt like they came about it from the wrong way. They made the easy decision. and they're almost preparing to fire him next year, which makes me ask why even give him that opportunity. But I hope he turns it around. I want to see Michigan win, but it's hard to have that faith right now.
Well, here I'm going to try and turn this around and throw this at you from a different angle. Jim Harbaugh is supposed to be the ultimate competitor, right? Do you think now he's being put under the gun and this is his time where he performs the best?
See, I would have agreed with you on that before this year. But, I mean, I was in a number of those press conferences after the game, and even leading up to weeks, like, the way he talked about what was going on in the field made it feel to me like he was watching a completely different game. I mean, like, after the Wisconsin game, he's like, it felt like we were just a couple plays away. They weren't a couple plays. They lost by 5 touchdowns.
Couple touchdowns away.
Yeah, like that's what bothered me is it didn't seem like it bothered him as much as it should have, like what was going on the field. And I'll give him a slight pass. This was a weird year. Michigan had some injuries. Some guys, semi-opted out on minor injuries. But it just didn't feel like it angered him how bad they were this year. And that really rubbed me the wrong way because it felt like he was watching a different product than us as fans were.
And we've said it too. It feels like he just lost his fire from 2015, 2016. Like if you see that same guy back in 2015, 2016 after this, like for this year, you'd expect a lot more, clips of him being taken where he's just a little more fired up than he was. It didn't seem like he had it all season.
Just
and
a
I
little.
think that rubbed off on the players. I think you could see it didn't seem to bother. I mean, you saw guys like celebrating a tackle down, 4 touchdowns. It's like, what are you doing out there? And I think that does come from the coach. What attitude he's putting out there is going to rub off on the players. And if he's going to bring back that fire, I think it will rub off on the players. So I hope he does do that. I hope this incentive-based contract does that. But right now, I don't see it.
Yeah, and I mean, the weird thing is, well, Jim has always kind of been an excuse guy, right? He always has some reason for why why the team didn't perform. He even like in Ohio State in 2016, he's complaining about the officials, which they were terrible. But as the head coach, do you come out and say that afterwards? I don't know.
Hell yeah. Fire him up, baby.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Well, either way, he's always been kind of an excuse guy, and he's got something for a reason for everything. But I do think that rubs off on his guys sometimes too. It's like there's not like a fight through it type of thing. Like, all right, if the refs are against us, fuck them, we'll beat them too. Like there's not that type of fight I don't see from Michigan, especially of late. Maybe you saw it a little bit earlier in Harbaugh's career. But I did want to, ask you guys, because Shane, you said it and I agree. This contract kind of sets him up for like, all right, next year it's either, do or die. Right. So what's the expectation that you guys have that will give Harbaugh 2022 and 2023, how much, what does he have to do to earn that? Because right now it kind of seems like, before it was, the contract's on the table. You have to completely screw it up to make us take that off the table, right? Now it's like it's off the table. You have to earn it for us to put it back on the table type of a thing. So what does Jim Harbaugh have to do, and what does Michigan have to do in 2021 to earn him a 2022?
I mean, I think that's a good question, and that's what I want to know too. Is like, is it beat Ohio State or you're out? Because I don't think there's many people that think next year's Michigan team is going to be better than Ohio State. So let's say he goes 11-1 and loses to Ohio State, assuming they play a full 12-game slate. Like, is he still out then? That's kind of what I would like to know from the administration. Obviously, they'll never just say that black and white, but obviously the contract is structured in a way that beating Ohio State is going to be the hurdle to get most of those incentives that we see. I mean, that's what I want to know. Is I don't think many Michigan fans, and I'm sure a lot do because it's the goal every year to beat Ohio State, but even with the talent Michigan brings back next year, I don't see how that's enough to beat Ohio State. So does Jim Harbaugh still then get another chance if everything else is a win? So I don't know. I want to know if Ohio State really is that litmus test from the athletic department. Is that game where they're putting all their apples, or is it just, the performance as a whole throughout other games?
I mean, I think if he goes 11-1 and it's only lost to Ohio State, I think there's no way you can get rid of him after that, because that's the first year he's won 11 games.
So Michigan has only won 11 games 5 times in their history.
Yeah.
History of the program. So that's where Spath was on our podcast earlier this week, and he's like, no, he has to win 11 games next year or he's done. And I'm like, dude, that's pretty ridiculous, because A, they haven't done it yet under Jim Harbaugh. B, they haven't done it ever. Brady Hoke did it in 2011, and that was it. Even Lloyd Carr went 10-3 all the time. Did he beat Ohio State in those 10-3 years and win the Big 10-3 was enough to win the Big Ten when Lloyd Carr was there? Yes, it was different, but I still think there's this that's just a ridiculous expectation, because it's not realistic, right? 10-3 to me seems kind of like the ceiling a little bit for not just Jim Harbaugh, but for Michigan right now, because of the way that the rest of the Big Ten is, and then specifically the way Ohio State is right now.
No, I agree. But that's kind of the question, is there's no scenario where Jim Harbaugh earns the rest of those incentives and doesn't beat Ohio State in my mind. So
right.
So in my mind, then he has to beat them for that contract to really pay out the way that I think the university is hoping it will, to encourage him to do better. So, I think that's just kind of the way college football is going now. And we see that, if you're not winning your conference, if you're not heading into the end of the season undefeated or with one loss, you're just not in the picture. And for Michigan, that's going to be beating Ohio State, as we all know. So if he still can't do that, I don't know if he's worth keeping around.
The thing is, too, is like you said, you need Ohio State to have 2 losses for Michigan to really have a chance if they're not going to beat them. And 2018, 2016, Ohio State, if they have 2 losses, Michigan's in the Big Ten title game, and we're having a totally different conversation right now. But
if Maryland, if the fucking quarterback
Maryland
doesn't throw it right into the goddamn ground, Michigan's going to fucking Indianapolis.
I know. So it's a mess. But I think this year the only people that can save Harbaugh this year are Mike McDonald, if he has creates an amazing defense. Josh Gaddis, what can he do in year 3? And Mike Hart, what kind of culture can he bring, man? He's a guy who's lived this rivalry. He's beaten all of his rivals, right? Has he beaten Ohio State?
At Michigan?
When he was there? Yeah.
Yeah.
He beat Ohio State. So, he's a big part of the culture and what Michigan believes they are and what they want to get to. So I think bringing him back is huge. And shit, man, after seeing all this stuff with Milton's right hand being in a cast, maybe we see a different Milton. Maybe there's a little bit of a QB competition next year, 3-way competition between McCarthy, McNamara, and Milton. So,
you're that.
I love the optimism.
I'm getting back on my
that
optimism.
is
Not even
ridiculous.
close to, not even halfway to fucking.
It's January fucking 14th, and Jack's already.
Just saying, man. There's an opportunity. I don't think that they're going to have a great year, but there's always a a possibility.
Milton for Heisman. Start it now.
I love it, Jack.
Bring it back.
Keep it up, man. I need this. I need this level of positivity for this program.
I looked back when Angelique put that tweet out, and Indiana, game 3 is when he had that thumb taped up. When did we start seeing his play decline? Right around that time.
Week 2.
But he could have injured it in game 2. He started off the first half pretty strong. We don't know when the injury happened. That's all
game
I'm saying.
2, I will say, wasn't our. It was not. I don't know if it was Joe Milton's fault. It was the defense's fault, and we couldn't fucking run the ball.
12-15 in the first half, and was having a good half.
Well, that's very good.
We don't know when the injury happened. I'm just saying, guys. I don't think we can. With this new information that's come to light, I don't think we can.
You so much.
It's a very good.
So much.
It's a very good point, because I think what we wanted to see this year was the offense really take off, but the poor offense play was overshadowed by the absolute garbage defense, right? So definitely in 2021, the offense has to come out and has to deliver, especially after we've seen this national championship game, right? We saw speed and space. We saw for the first time, I think I was like, holy shit, this is what Michigan's offense could be, right? Like pre-snap crazy motions with guys in the backfield, getting receivers out in space, dump off passes. I was excited. And for a moment, I was like, dude, if we can get our offense high powered and in space, like we can actually be a very, very dominant team. So I think in 2021, I want to see this offense really take that step forward. Mike Hart is a great step. And I want to see them do that like on the field.
How sad is it? We've been saying that for 3 years.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Is like that offense is high powered because they have like 9 5-stars, and they also Steve Sarkisian is one of the greatest offensive minds out there, and that's why he just got hired at Texas. And
well,
you know what?
Tell that to his head coaching record.
Yeah, well, he had some problems at USC.
He's drinking water now. He's drinking water.
Exactly. But you know what? He's gonna guess what? Dude, Texas with Steve Sarkisian, they're going to score like 80 points a game if they can do what he just did with Alabama. So I don't know. I think that's apples to oranges. Steve Sarkisian versus Josh Gaddis, because Josh Gaddis has not shown that he can be the creative play caller that Steve Sarkisian can. But I still get what you're saying. Like the potential's there. Michigan does have the talent on the offensive side of the ball. And then what do you think about Mike Hart? Does that change things about what's going to happen in this running back room?
Mike Hart will be a success, in my opinion, and this should be his first goal, is convincing either Josh Gaddis or Jim Harbaugh, I don't know who it is, but that you can leave a running back in for more than 4 straight plays. I don't know if you guys have talked about this on earlier shows, but nothing irked me this season more than Haskins, like clearly being the best back out of that group, having a great drive, and then just sit on the bench for like the next quarter. I don't know what the mindset was there. It really bugged me, but I hope Mike Hart comes in and picks one of these guys. I mean, they have a number of really talented backs and just says like, we're going to ride this guy. Obviously you're going to rotate some guys in, but the idea that you're going to play like 4 running backs in a game and have all of them see significant snaps is just not a winning formula. I mean, look across college football. How many teams do you know that ride that many guys and have a dominant rushing attack? It just doesn't really happen. And I think Haskins is like a talented enough guy that he could really be like a great number 1 back. And I hope Mike Hart identifies that and really pushes that on the guys above him.
Yeah, and like you said, with that kind of rotation, I mean, you just don't see it in college football. When you do see it, you see 2 guys. And, I mean, Georgia did it really well with, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, DeAndre Swift. I mean, so many guys that they've had. They're like running back you down there in Georgia. But they never had more than 2 guys that got, significant snaps, and there was always a number 1 guy. You always knew who the number 1 guy was. This past year, you can say Haskins is probably the number 1 guy, but I don't know if you would pick out a number 2. I mean, they're all getting the same amount of snaps. I think probably should have been Quorum, but hopefully Mike Hart, like you said, Shane, he can push, we need a number 1 back. We need a guy that we can rely on constantly, and then get a guy that, we can put in to give number 1 guy a breather, because this 4-man rotation is not working.
And I don't know if you guys saw this, and this kind of went back to your comment about why Alabama is able to do what they do and why Michigan can't do that. It was the recruiting rankings of wide receivers where Donovan Peoples-Jones is ranked higher than Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, and Henry Ruggs. That told me everything I need to know about why I don't believe in Jim Harbaugh, because he's brought in the talent and like it hasn't shown on the field. I mean, Michigan has brought in a number of guys that I think we were all really excited about coming out of high school. They're doing it again this year. And then 3 years in, you're kind of wondering what happened to that guy on Michigan's team and why is he not in the conversations with guys that were ranked lower than him coming out of high school.
And now, DPJ starts for the Browns in the freaking playoffs. Like, he's obviously good enough to do it. And so the development is one thing that I don't think Michigan has done as good of a job as they should be doing. But also, just get those playmakers touches. If you look at just the touches between Devontae Smith and DPJ in their couple years in college, and it's like, it's insane. I don't think DPJ even had like 20 catches on the year, let alone 20 touchdowns on the year like Devontae Smith did. And so maybe he wasn't developed enough to do it, but if he was, which I think he showed, flashes of it, so try and get him the ball. Try and get Nico Collins the ball. Get Hassan Haskins the ball. Like, those are the guys that you need to figure it out, because if Alabama can get those playmakers the ball, they have way more weapons on the bench than Michigan does. You don't have to play every weapon that showed a little bit of sunshine in practice. Like, they can wait their turn, just like Najee Harris even waited his turn at Alabama until he was ready, and now he's a freaking Heisman finalist, So we have this thing, I don't know if they're scared of guys transferring, but it seemed like in 2020, and maybe it was just because it was a weird year and they were like, screw it, it's not a real year, we'll just try and get everybody experience. But it was this thing where it was just like they felt like they needed to get anybody who had a good practice ever throughout the season, they needed to see some time in the game because they earned it somehow. And it's like, dude, no, play guys that are going to win you the football game.
And I mean, how many times did you see Michigan's offense try and throw it to Eric Alls, like after he had dropped 5 passes and everyone would just say, hey, we heard he had a great practice this week. I mean, like, Michigan just kept trying to force the ball to guys that it seemed like they had picked before the game. We're gonna get touches regardless of what was actually going on the field, and that's what's really frustrating me. I mean, you see it with these really great teams in college football, and Ohio State does it well. Like, they have plays where they just throw it to Chris Olave, like, no matter what, because he's their best playmaker and he's gonna do great things with the ball in his hands. And Michigan needs to do more of that. Just get your most talented players out there, get him the ball, and good things happen, and not overthink it.
And so the one thing I do like about the Mike Hart thing, going back to that, is he is a young guy that's going to come in with some fire, knows the culture, knows what winning looks like at Michigan, knows the rivalry games. And the fire in the young part is really what stands out to me, because I feel like Michigan hasn't had that really much. All these assistant coaches are pretty old. There's Don Brown's obviously fiery, but it's not like Juwan Howard type of fiery where he's like the cool uncle, which I think, Mike Hart's going to be like that brother type of guy to a lot of these running backs, right? The older brother type guy. So I actually see that a little bit in Mike McDonald too. I don't know if he'll be the older brother type guy, but he's a young, like, he's jacked actually. And he's like, he's just like, he's going to bring us something to the table there that's not like old professor type guy that Don Brown was, and even some of the other guys that are with him. It's going to be like he's getting into doing the drills with them and stuff like that, which I think can help with getting these guys fired up to play.
Yeah, as long as we can. I would actually love to see Mike McDonald paired up with like an older guy as like a co-DC, specifically somebody to coach up like defensive line. That would be ideal, in my opinion.
I don't even I pretend the D line doesn't exist right now. I was so disappointed by that position group this year. I mean Hutch coming back is big, I think, for this team, and he's gonna have to be an anchor on what seems like a weak position group next year. But yeah, the defense this year, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's any coach that could fix what we saw this year with just the talent that they had. I mean, when you think of the best Michigan teams, like, you just knew that their defense could get a stop. And it seemed like every time Michigan got in third down this year, you just kind of accepted that the offense was going to convert. And that's a problem. And I mean, I just pray that the new DC can figure that one out, because it was just discouraging to watch a defense unable to get off the field.
And not only do you expect that offense to convert on third down, if we do happen to stop them, you're holding your breath waiting for a flag to be thrown for holding in the secondary or something ridiculous. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, okay, they stopped them, but I'm like sitting here and I'm either saying, what the fuck, because a flag is thrown, or I'm like a sigh of relief because they're actually, they actually stopped them and are able to get the ball back. It's just a mess, man. I don't know. I'm excited for Braden McGregor, because he'll be healthy this year. He'll be bookend with Hutchinson. And then I want to see some Mozzie Smith, man. I want to see Mozzie Smith get in there a little bit more. And we know Chris Hinton's back, and he's going to do really well. But other than that, man, you got Welshoff, you got Gabe Newberg, but I couldn't name anybody else on the D-line.
If you want to have
some DTs.
if you want to have some fun, watch McGregor's high school highlights. He's got some
insane.
offensive snaps, and he is Rob Gronkowski.
Really?
I mean, it's fun to watch. I'll say that. I was watching some earlier this year preparing for a piece, and he is a dominant athlete. I mean, I know it's high school level, but they need to get him on the field next year as much as they can.
Love it. Love it. Well, that's about all I have on this. I mean, I know we cover pretty much everything with Harbaugh, with the new hires. We'll see what happens with the rest of the defensive staff because they haven't officially hired Mike McDonald, I guess. According to Sam Webb and other people, it's pretty much a done deal. Michigan just is waiting. Which, by the way, I saw Don Brown in Arizona polo for the first time. It was really weird. We trashed him a little bit, but I know like on his way out, we definitely missed him. I like him as a person. I wish him well. I hope him and Jed Fish, because I wish Jed Fish was here as well.
Yeah.
I hope that they do well in Arizona in the Pac-12, and so that would be fun to watch a few old Michigan guys there. But couple days here, we'll have some more Michigan basketball. Michigan versus Minnesota at 2 p.m. on Saturday. Big test for Michigan on the road. They haven't had too many big tests on the road, so I'm excited about that. And then we'll have more, like I said, football news hopefully in the next week or two with some more hires and recruits. I know the 2 5-star corners are recruiting here soon at the end of January, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping, but not very confident now that Zordich is gone. So
I mean, you saw that. Was it Damani Jackson? Right after Zordich was let go, he announced he's like, I'm going to make my commitment. I think it's 23rd of January. So doesn't leave you too confident that he's coming to Ann Arbor.
No, and I don't know. The whole Zordich thing, I don't really understand, and we can talk about that another time because we've gone pretty long today. But I just don't understand that. So we'll see. All right. Well, thank you, Shane, for coming on. Appreciate it. Shane Werner from Wolverine Sports TV. Where can people follow you at?
I'm on Twitter, just at my name, and then give the Wolf Sports TV accounts a follow. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we're everywhere. Give us a follow there. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. They've been putting out some fire highlight tapes after the Michigan basketball games. They've got, access to Juwan Howard and the team and Jim Harbaugh and these press conferences, and it's a really good follow actually if you're looking for some more media people to get some access, because they have actually probably better access than most other media people do, which is pretty cool. So. Yeah. Thank you again for coming on, Shane. Appreciate it. We'll have to have you again at some point, but we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Go Blue.
All right. Thanks, guys. Go Blue.
Go Blue.